Wilson pulls the trigger.
Welcome to Talkin' Jets. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my co-pilot, Matt O'Leary. Matt, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. I'm still a little bummed out after that loss on Sunday, but quick turnaround, so you got to kind of put that in the rear view pretty quick.
Sorry, I'm hacking up a lung over here.
Good.
Yeah, dude, that loss, just brutal. Brutal. Boys and girls, as you're hopping into the stream, make sure you hit that like button. Our good buddy Green Bean isn't feeling so hot tonight, so he's going to be taking the night off. Apparently, when Matt saw Green Bean this past weekend, Matt and Green Bean were doing a little bit of kissing, and that whatever Matt caught last week, or whatever Matt had last week, Green Bean caught this week.
No bueno there. Just want to say it was awesome to see Green Bean. We missed you, Ryan, but it was a good time. Dom C was there, so I got to meet Dom C. Green Bean is the best. His family was just as nice. I met his two sisters. I met his mom, Mama Bean. It was a great time.
Ooh, I love it. Happy birthday, Green Bean. This past Thursday was Green Bean's birthday, so we're thinking about you, and we hope you feel better. Maybe we'll see him in the chat. Who knows? If you're just hopping in, make sure you hit that like button. For every 25 likes we get on this video, we're going to pick a qualifier for our t-shirt giveaway at the end of the stream. And if you're watching after the fact, all you got to do is hit a comment down below this video, and you get entered into next week's t-shirt giveaway. So without further ado, let's jump into some of the football news. Obviously, Jets had a game this past weekend. The Lions versus the Jets. Jets lose to the Lions 20-17 on a heartbreaking 50-yard fourth down play again, scoring a touchdown, and then the Jets just not being able to come back in those final moments there. Matt, what were your thoughts on the game overall?
Yeah, I feel like they beat themselves in so many different ways. Like really ever since the game ended on Sunday and the last 2 days talking about this, on Twitter and in video form. There's so many, like starting off early in the game, the special teams blunder, just Braden Mann is terrible, man. It's just unbelievable. If he had 6 punts and 5 of them were terrible. And then you add in the inconsistencies with Zach. You add in the clock management at the end of the game. And then obviously the defense letting up a touchdown in that spot was brutal. I think they all play a factor. It's not just one thing that is the reason why they lost. It was a team effort.
Yeah, this feels like oddly similar to the Minnesota game, but also different in the same way. It felt like a team loss again. Like I can't peg this loss on any one specific unit. Like as much as I want to blame the special teams for giving up the touchdown, the defense allowed the Lions offense to go all the way down to the half-yard line. So we were put in a bad situation anyway, and then to compound it, they give up the touchdown. Then the defense gives up the long fourth down play. And then, we could talk about Zach. He's nowhere near the top of the list in terms of reasons why we lost the game. And then you got Robert Saleh and the questionable timeout or lack thereof calling towards the end of the game there. And it's really frustrating to see. And it felt very much like a team loss. But this one hurts. And we got a little bit of luck because the Dolphins lost to the Bills and the Patriots lost in spectacular fashion. Was there anything better this past weekend than watching the Patriots loss?
No, it eased the pain of that Jets loss a little bit because I was still pretty bummed out Sunday evening, but I couldn't fully enjoy Mac Jones getting thrown around like a ragdoll by Chandler Jones because, the Jets blew their game. But yeah, kind of, you know what? How about that's worse and more embarrassing than the butt fumble, by the way. But who knows if that's going to get remembered as long.
So that we were talking about that yesterday on the call-in show, and it was like, all right, what is worse, the butt fumble or that stiff arm, which I don't know if there's a name for already, but there needs to be a name. So guys, let us know if you come up with a name because of this. But I would argue the butt fumble was more embarrassing, but the whatever that lateral play was far more impactful. The Jets were already going to lose the butt fumble game with or without the butt fumble being there. The Patriots lost this game when they had the opportunity to jump in front of the Dolphins for a playoff spot. And it was just amazing. I think the more interesting question for me is who had the better stiff arm, Quinnen Williams on Tyreek Hill or Chandler Jones on Mac Jones?
They were both phenomenal. I think they need to be like I on t-shirts. Maybe, I'm highly considering getting the Quinn and Williams one tattooed on my body. I have no tattoos, but that just needs to live forever. Yeah, I don't know. That's tough. For me, the Quinnen one, because that felt personal, because Tyreek Hill was very adamant about why he didn't want to come to the Jets. So I think I like that one a little better.
Yeah, that's kind of where I fall on it too. As much as like the Chandler Jones one really helps us out, I really enjoy the personal touch that Quinnen gave to us, and it felt really good that he was the one that did it. It wasn't some like no-name player. It was like, this is clearly our best defensive player. It's been fun to watch. But let's go into this Lions game just a little bit further. I want to talk about Zach Wilson. Obviously, it's not anything as far as a terrible stat line by any means, but the completion percentage is still concerning here. Zach finishes 18 of 35, 51% completion percentage, 317 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 4 sacks. Matt, I want to hear your thoughts on Zach's game this past week.
It was a roller coaster ride. There were some amazing moments, and then there were some absolutely horrific moments. I guess we'll start with the positive. He did the pro day throw where he rolled left and hit a guy going right and deep for a touchdown to 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞𝐫𝐢𝐻. I love that. I thought he made a ton of other big throws. For instance, the Garrett Wilson throw the play before that to set that up. The Jeff Smith bomb at the end of the first half was good. And there was even a couple of big throws on that final drive that I thought were really impressive. But then you have the absolutely brain dead interception, just not reading the cover 3 and chucking it up for grabs. And he melted down after that. Like that third quarter looked very, very similar to what we were seeing in the second New England Patriots game. And then just too many times where guys are open and there's a clean pocket and he's just missing. It's like you have to be able to make those throws. The layup throws have to be made. But then he gives you the glimmer of hope with those big plays. It's really frustrating. It's a roller coaster ride watching him. I don't think it was bad. I don't think it was good either, because there were too many mistakes in there. But it's frustrating right now to try and watch him, because you see the talent, you see the upside, but then you also see the very low floor at times too.
Yeah, I think frustrating is the perfect word for this guy right here. I mean, it's just every time you see like a wow play, like you mentioned the pro day throw where he's running to his left and he rips it across the field to 𝐒𝐫𝐞𝐫𝐢𝐻. I'm thinking, oh my God, this guy's got it. But then you look at the first 4 throws of the game and he's missing Mims behind him. He's missing Garrett Wilson over his head. He's missing like left, right, and sideways. And it's frustrating. We saw Robert Saleh say something along the lines of, in this instant coffee world, everyone just wants success right off the bat. And I don't know if I don't disagree. I think that's more an issue with the collective bargaining agreement and how quarterbacks' contracts are now structured. But I do think that, it's kind of what you got to live with. And it's not like Zach Wilson is playing, 20th worst quarterback. He's playing like the worst quarterback right now. So it's like to see him hit all those hard throws and just not hit the easy stuff is just so incredibly frustrating, especially when you see the success of someone like Brock Purdy out in San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't make it any easier, or the guys that, last pick in the draft, but things just look easy. And he's doing the little things. And like, that's kind of the comparison that I make for why I think Mike White is better right now. And that's not to say that, who knows, maybe in the offseason, Zach fixes his mechanics and the footwork and it all clicks for him. That's not out of the realm of possibilities, because the talent is obviously there. But White is not going to make the easy things hard, which is exactly what Zach is doing. And someone like Brock Purdy has one of the best offensive minds in football, and Kyle Shanahan scheming guys wide open, but he's doing the little things right, and they've been extremely productive.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the wide receivers too. Garrett Wilson has been victim of this a little bit. He is he wears his emotion on his sleeve, and Robert Saleh was actually asked about this at his press conference today. Is it an issue that Garrett Wilson is kind of, maybe showing some visible displays of frustration on the field? Should he be bottling it up a little bit more? And I understand the thought process there. I think the optics don't look great, but Robert Saleh had a really good answer for it. It was like, Garrett Wilson is also the guy that hugs his teammates first. He's right there to, cheer him on. And I do see that. I think he does wear his emotions on his sleeve. I don't love the optics. I'm not going to lie. But I don't think it's done with a malicious intent.
No, I'm with you there. I saw a lot of I would call it overreaction with the frustration that he showed on that third down miss. I look at that more of like a heat of the moment thing. Like he's a competitor. He wants to, get that first down and wants the offense to go down and get points. But I don't know if you saw, I think Ali was actually the one who sent it out on Instagram. There was a video of Garrett Wilson like hugging Zach Wilson and like talking to him right after the game, and then they go into the locker room. Like, to me, that doesn't say, oh my God, I don't want to play for this guy. It just shows that in the moment he was frustrated on the field. And then after the game, he's still supportive of his guy, which I think is fine. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think even if Mike White were throwing the ball, I think you'd still see that same level of frustration from Garrett. I think if he feels like he beat his man and the throw is off, he'd be irritated because he wants to win. He wants to put his best effort forward on each play. So I had a lot of people upset with me about Zach Wilson because I was hot on the Zach Wilson thing. I was like, yo, this is getting ridiculous. You can't have a 50% completion percentage. I know the Lions are playing better than they have, in years past, and that they have more of their ranking is not indicative of how they're currently playing. But man, losing the way we lost to New England, and then having all but it's the Bears and it's the backup quarterback and we actually get a win, but then having the Lions, the Vikings, and the Bills all losses. This has been rough. This has been a tough stretch here, and it's disappointing knowing we were at 6-3 at the bye to being 7-7 right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they started 5-2 in their first 7, and then over the next 7, they've been 2-5. That's it's really tough. They obviously hit their blip in their season, losing 3 in a row. It's frustrating, and it's so many. As we said, it's so many different reasons why they lost. It's not only the quarterback. The quarterback was a part of it on Sunday, but as we mentioned, there were multiple reasons why they lost.
So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about another one of those reasons. Robert Saleh's clock management. He had 3 timeouts with 1 minute and 49 seconds left on the clock. The Jets wound up settling for a 58-yard field goal on first down with a timeout in the pocket still. What were your thoughts of Saleh's final drive, and do you think he's the biggest reason the Jets did not win this game?
I don't know if it's the biggest reason. It is pretty high up there on the list, though. Again, I kind of weight all these things pretty close to equally for the reasons why they lost. There's not one thing that jumps out and like, that's it. That's why they lost. But how he doesn't take that time out after the Garrett Wilson reception when there was I think it was 45 or 48 seconds left, something like that, is inexcusable. And I know after the game, he came out and said that he didn't want to chance them reviewing the spot and then make it a 4th down play. I was trying to get up to the line and get something going quick, but he admitted today that was a mistake, that he should have took the timeout there. But, attempting a 58-yard field goal with 1 second left and a timeout in your pocket, that feels pretty rough.
Yeah, I think we could have had another play or two if you wind up, moving the ball a little bit better and using your timeout strategically. I thought the sacks that Zach took were definitely frustrating. There was one on first or second down that was, where we had to burn our first one, I think. And then some of the throws too. I mean, Elijah Moore was wide open on a crossing route just before the long 4th down play. And I'm just thinking man, if he had hit Moore there and we gained an extra 10 yards, and it's a 48-yard kick and Zuerlein's not trying to kick it out of the stadium, maybe there's a different outcome there. But it sucks that it came down to that point in the game because Robert Saleh's defense flubbed up a coverage. And the tight end score. When you search by slowest tight ends in Madden, I'm pretty sure this dude's the last tight end that shows up.
Yeah, and on that drive before it, he had a brutal drop, and I was like, oh my God, thank God. I don't even know who this is, but I appreciate that. And then just a blown coverage, and I've seen a lot of people throwing C.J. Mosley under the bus for it. Honestly, I think it was more on Quincy. I think that was his guy.
That's what I heard.
He bit really hard on the run or the play action. And then it was just guy wide open. Because if you look from the coach's box film, you see Mosley running down the field all pissed. That obviously wasn't his guy.
Yeah. I think the reaction from Mosley was slamming the helmet, and the optics of where Mosley was in comparison to the tight end made me feel like Mosley was at fault. And then I think it was Samini that posted out. It's oh yeah, it wasn't Mosley's guy. And they're like, oh, who was it? And they're like, oh, we're not going to get into it. And then like you said, Quincy seems like the one that was at fault for that. Yeah, this one's frustrating because Salah, for me, this is an opportunity where good coaches can have a legitimate impact on the field. And with a coach, I feel like there's a vibe for a team. Like they set the tone, but you actually have a tangible you can control this clock to an extent. You can't control what the players do, but you can control this. And the Jets even hired a dude, Coach Smash, to watch game time, analytics and what the best clock management should be. Like that stuff is frustrating. We have a guy in-house to do this, and he flubbed it up.
Yeah, he botched it. He did, and he has to be on the list. He's culpable for it as well. Like I said, it's kind of hard to rank them. I will say though, I don't know if you saw this, but Joe Namath blaming the kicker, Greg Zerloin, for the loss is a bit much.
No, you can't do that. I think Namath's just old.
Yeah, I mean, just take the
wrong.
phone away, take the smartphone away, wheel him out once a year, wave at the crowd, and then, put him back wherever he goes.
I'm pretty sure Namath is using the T9 word to text still. I don't think he's got a full keyboard.
Yeah, no shot.
No pictures being taken on that thing. Well, we have a quick turnaround. Clearly, with the short week, the Jets are going up against the Jaguars. We're 1.5-point dogs at home with Zach Wilson officially slated to start. I think it was a long stretch for Mike White to even get any sort of consideration for this week, considering he needed bones to heal. Now, we do have a mini bye week. We'll have 10 days off before our next game, so there is hope if the Jets do pull out a win that Mike White will get another opportunity. This week, it's going to be the number 1 overall pick in Trevor Lawrence going up against the number 2 overall pick in Zach Wilson, all because of our punter, Braden Mann, not making a damn tackle. Could have been the same matchup, but vice versa.
Yeah, frustrating to go back a couple of years, and frustrating now that they are home underdogs, but here you go. And yeah, it's Lawrence is hitting his stride right now. I think he has 14 touchdown passes since week 9. It's insane.
Yeah. Like, I think it's 1 interception too. Like, it's just,
Yep.
I want to win this game in the worst way, and I hope we do everything in our power to win this game. I'm just praying that it's bad weather and that Trevor Lawrence is kind of taken out of this game. They have to run. The Jets have Quinnen Williams back. We're pinning our ears back a little bit more. And then even Jacksonville coming up to the cold weather. I want it blisteringly cold. Any sort of advantage the Jets could possibly get is what I want, because if you get through this game, I do think Mike White comes back. If we lose this game, actually, I guess we could do this.
Yeah, pull that
Let's
up.
see. Bam! Ooh, look at this. See, now we'll do it from here. So the Jets, there are situations where the Jets can lose against the Jaguars. As long as they win out and have a little bit of help, there could be a 43% chance of getting into the playoffs. A loss to Seattle, but wins with Jacksonville and Miami, would be a 56% chance of getting in. And then there's a 98% chance if we win all 3. So that's the goal. You got to get all 3 wins right here and hope the Patriots wind up losing one of their next 3. And it does seem likely between the Bengals and the Bills. But Matt, how are you feeling with this Jacksonville game coming up and our outlook on the playoffs?
Yeah, you got to take it one game at a time, rather, and hope you win each time. Obviously, the one you could probably survive losing would be Seattle, because it's against an NFC team, and the AFC teams in Jacksonville and Miami are your tiebreakers. I really have a feeling that Week 18 is going to be a win and in situation for the Jets against the Miami Dolphins. That scares the life out of me, but it's. I don't know. That's what we all wanted. No, wasn't it? Saying, we want meaningful December games. And on my podcast tomorrow, I just recorded before doing this. I was like, we wanted meaningful December football, but this sucks, man. Losing 3 in a row. This is no fun. I don't like this.
Dude, I cannot believe that this could be I think you're right. I think it is going to be a win and in situation. And it brings me back to 2015. And I'm thinking, okay, we wind up winning some games into the end, and we're like, okay, this is how it's going to go. And then, oh my God, Quinnen Williams is going to break a leg. We're going to have to give him a monster contract like Muhammad Wilkerson. We're going to lose that final game to a division rival. And everything's going through my mind, the pessimistic Jet fan. And I'm just like, oh, I can't have this happen to me again. I just want to win. I don't want Tua to go off on us. I don't want to sit through all offseason, just wondering what could have been and the collapse that we had from where we were. Not to mention, I don't know. I want to win. I want to win. I want to get in. I want this streak over.
It would be frustrating after how they started. I mean, you kind of get why the fall has begun, whether it's the poor quarterback play, but to me, losing Breece Hall and AVT really derailed this team. Those were their two best offensive players, and trying to overcome that's been pretty tough. Even the last few weeks, the offensive line struggled, whether it's with Zach or Mike White. I mean, Mike White got hurt because of the O-line, and then not all, but some of Zach's issues came from the offensive line as well.
Yeah, you know what I find interesting too, and I think I brought this up to Green Bean last week. I know I talked about it recently, but what does it say about Zach Wilson that they don't have you throw the ball a whole lot, and the guy you're handing off to is considered Offensive Rookie of the Year, and the minute your ass gets benched and they decide to start throwing the rock a little bit more, the other rookie they took in the first round looks like he could be Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like he had 98 yards this past week, so I really shouldn't say that, too bad. But I want Garrett Wilson to get Offensive Rookie of the Year. I want Sauce to get Defensive Rookie of the Year. If that doesn't happen and we miss the playoffs, I'm gonna be kind of upset. Like that's
How about, okay, here's a good one for you. Would you rather miss the playoffs but have them win Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, or make the playoffs and neither win?
I'd rather the playoffs personally. I think that's more important for this fan base. As much as I like the accolades of saying, "Oh, we have the two best guys in the draft on the offensive and defensive side of the balls." But I can look at the caliber of player they are, and regardless whether they win that award or not, I can say Sauce Gardner might be the best cornerback in the league, and I could say Garrett Wilson is well on his way to being a top 10 wide receiver in this league in the coming years. So it's I'm taking the playoff spot. I think you're probably in that same boat.
No, of course, but I'm with you. I want to see them both win the Rookie of the Year. I think they're deserving.
What we getting here? Daniel Faust says, loss one, Zach. Loss. Oh, he's saying who the loss is on. So number 1 is Zach, number 2 is the defense, 3 LaFleur, 4 offensive line, 5 Salah. I disagree. I don't think I'd rank it in that order. I think I'd probably. I think the defense. Is probably number 1 for me. I think because of how it's them or the offensive line. I'm going to put the defense first. I'm going to put the O-line second. I'm going to put Zach and Salah tied for third because I think they're they were a big part of this loss for different reasons, but I thought equally as impactful. And like LaFleur, we had guys running open, so I don't really want to put this on LaFleur. Where do you fall on this, Matt?
Yeah, I'm having a really hard time with this one. I don't like the defense that high. I will say I think I would lower that because really they give up 13 points on the day. And if 13 points isn't enough, that's tough. Special teams has to be on here. Honestly, I might put special teams above any of these 5 on the list. So that might be my number 1. And I'd put the offense. So I guess Zach and LaFleur I would put in front of the defense also.
Yeah, I think I probably put a little too much blame, or maybe I attribute more blame of that special teams touchdown to the defense and kind of forcing it to a point where Braden Mann had like no space to even punt that ball. But you can't have 2 punt return touchdowns in the same year when I think there's 3 on the season for the NFL. Like this is just not a good look for the New York Jets.
And I saw, because I clipped the video of it, and they're like, "Oh, it was bad coverage on it too." Well, line drive punt to the middle of the field. There's no time for the gunners to get down there, so I don't know how you possibly expect. Like I get he was punting from his own end zone, but all of his punts are to the middle of the field. There's not one where it's bouncing and going out of bounds. It's going right into the end zone because it's in the middle of the field.
Yeah, Braden Mann is someone we have to upgrade from this offseason. I was hoping, with the strong leg that we'd see something a little bit better, but he's been, you could argue, lost us 2 games on his leg because of the special teams touchdown today and the special teams touchdown against the Patriots. He kicks one out of bounds or kicks him at least in a position where your gunners can get down there. Maybe there's a different outcome. I don't know. I tend not to have him too high up on the list just because I don't like even the 58-yard kick. Like I don't blame Zerline for that either.
No, I don't.
That's a hell of a boot.
Yep.
Daniel Faust comes in again, says, "We can win. Go Jets. We can. Will we capture it? The Braden Man Bowl this weekend." Chris KV says, "What's the best outcome for us in New England versus Miami?" It depends what happens this week. If Miami and the Patriots both lose, then it doesn't matter, right? Like, I mean, I would prefer the Patriots to lose because we can take care of business against the Pats. But I would say the Patriots beating Miami might be our best chance of Miami getting a loss other than us. Like, we're looking at Green Bay and us. So, like, I mean, we basically need to win. We need to beat Miami to get into the playoffs to have any realistic shot. I mean, an 11% shot if you lose against Miami is just not not in the cards. You really need – now, these percentages will change based on how teams do. Like, if – Miami and the Patriots both lose, or Baltimore goes on some crazy skid, they lose 3 games straight, then there's, some mathematical possibilities that open up. But for right now, you kind of have to win out. So for me, I'm hoping Miami beats New England, because if we beat Miami, we are going to have that tiebreaker, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's kind of it's going to be dependent on what happens next week, I think. Obviously, going to root like hell for Green Bay to beat the Dolphins. I think there's a way where if New England loses 2 of 3, right? So let's say they lose to the Bengals and the Bills, but they beat the Dolphins, and the Dolphins also lose this week to the Packers, then that could put the Jets in pretty good shape. But that's a lot of dominoes falling the Jets' way.
Yeah, that would be the Jets. Let's see. If there were 2 losses to the Dolphins and the Patriots were to lose 2 of their last 3, you're probably looking at a situation that's probably the 11% situation. That's probably one of those. Because, I mean, then you got to win both of them. Or we're saying Miami loses against us, or no? Like, we go into the final week of the season and we don't need it, or we need it?
I don't know if you would need it if Miami loses the next 2 weeks, because they're 8-6 right now, so that put the then
you're right. So this is probably the 11% situation.
Yeah.
If the Patriots drop 2, the Dolphins drop 2, then we don't have to win the final one if we win these next 2. Just win out. Just win out.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much easier if you just win out. Exactly.
How about them Jets? Says, inexperienced all around is costing us these games. Yeah, I think that's probably the only saving grace. Like, I don't feel like we're getting, manhandled in any of these games. It feels like they're all pretty close. I would say the ones that felt the least out of grasp were maybe the Bengals game and maybe the last Buffalo game.
I'd say the Ravens game more so, week 1 all the way back.
I don't know. I mean, that was we were. Oh, man, maybe because the score was a little bit. I don't even remember what the score was in that game, but I remember it being like, man, I thought we played well enough to win, but I think it was Joyner that gave up like a massive touchdown, like to, who the hell's their receiver? I had him on my freaking fantasy team.
Bateman.
Right? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
it sucks because it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it just sucks because this team is losing games because of inexperience, not because we're just getting thumped. Like, I mean, that's good, but it's just frustrating because this should be a playoff roster this year.
The Jets would get 6 to make it 24-9. But they were in that game for a while against Baltimore. The defense, I thought, played really well. But, yeah, you're right. It's a lot of one-score losses, which I'd rather that than, in years gone by when they were getting blown out. That was no fun.
Yeah, no. Not a blast there. Androt Karma says, if Daniel Jones is the quarterback of the Jets, are we in the playoffs? Probably. I think he's played well enough to get the Giants there, and I would think with his play style, I don't know if Daniel Jones operates in our offense the same way. Like, you might have to have like Daboll come with him and run that same similar offense. Because Daniel Jones, the Patriots have had issues with running quarterbacks, and to not use Zach in that way in either game was just really, really weird. So I would think Daniel Jones would have the Jets in the playoffs because I think we win at least one or two of these games that we otherwise dropped. What about you, Matt? What do you think?
Yeah, for me, I think they probably would win another. They'd probably have 8 or 9 wins right now. Probably 9.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 9 and 5 if they had someone, even if it's not Daniel Jones, but like someone of that caliber of a quarterback. Middle of the road to slightly below middle of the road, but would still be enough for them to get in. It just sucks that for a majority of the season, it's been significantly below average.
Yeah. SB3 Standards says LaFleur did not use Zach's legs. Greater than 100 yards was there. Yeah, I wonder how much of this is on LaFleur and how much of this is on Zach. Is Zach nervous about running because of his leg and he doesn't want to have some similar type of injury? Is it LaFleur not wanting Zach to take shots because he's already taken hits behind the line of scrimmage? Does Zach have the freedom to do this anyway and he's just opting not to? I don't know, but it definitely feels like there's some yards to gain for the quarterback. And you would think, based on how San Francisco went out and drafted Trey Lance, they'd want to utilize that mobility, a little bit more frequently. And I feel like we get to this impasse almost of, okay, this is the most productive offense overall that I've seen in a long time, but we have the number 2 overall pick. Like, could you bring in someone that could build an offense around Zach and we could save the second overall pick? Or do you replace the quarterback and you plug in you have the offensive system already? It's a chicken or the egg sort of situation.
Yeah, it's really tough. I don't think LaFleur's been perfect, but you mentioned it earlier, there were times where these guys are open and the quarterback's just not hitting them. So I think, LaFleur isn't blame free. I don't think he is an amazing offensive coordinator. I think he's been fine. The quarterback play though has not, and I think that's where the issue really lies.
Let's see. Tom drops in, says Daboll would have developed Zach unlike LaFleur. I don't know. I mean, did Daboll develop Daniel Jones in his 4th year, or did Daniel Jones have any help the first 3 years? Like, it took Daniel Jones until his 4th year to show some life. Zach Wilson's only in his 23rd game.
Yeah. I think that's a great point with it. It took Daboll a little bit of time, so I don't necessarily know if it's going to click right away. That's the thing. Like, it's only been 22 starts for Zach Wilson. Mm-hmm. It's not looking good. He's going to need some really, to rework some things over the summer. But I don't know if that's necessarily fair to say that Daboll would have done a better job, unlike LaFleur. Like, again, I think LaFleur has been a pretty good play designer. There are some things that you could be critical of him but I don't think he's been terrible.
Yeah, I think for me, I just think Daniel Jones over his career in general has just shown to be a better quarterback than Zach Wilson anyway. I mean, the mobility he has, Daniel Jones's biggest issue has been the fumbles and the turnovers. Zach has been, not generating much offense and not operating within the system, in combination with the turnovers, like the questionable decision-making. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a tough conversation to have, and I don't know if you can really, say one way or the other. Donald comes in, says, Mike White is out for the rest of the season. Jets win 10 games. Would you prefer Zach turns it around and plays amazing, but we miss out on the playoffs? Or 2, the Zach plays subpar and we make the playoffs? If Mike White is out for the season, if that's the case, I would prefer Zach to play poorly, subpar, and we make the playoffs, because there's not really anything I can see from Zach in these final 3 games that would make me feel so comfortable with him going into the offseason that it would prevent me from addressing the quarterback situation in some capacity. So I would rather get to the playoffs than Zach play all right against, this is play amazing. I would rather that instead of Zach playing amazing against terrible teams.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I just want to get to the playoffs and end that streak, and then worry about the quarterback in the offseason there. Yeah, I mean, it would be great if he played amazing, and that'd be a little bit of a consolation prize to not making the playoffs. But again, he would still be a question mark going into next year, even if he did play amazing these next 3 games.
Pump Up the Champ says it's obvious Zach Wilson is not ready to start. Two Prime X, the interception and the interception grinding where he had Garrett Wilson wide open. It shows he has no pre-snap and blitz recognition. Yeah, it definitely feels like he's not processing what he's seeing fast enough. Robert Saleh was talking today a little bit, like if Zach can get comfortable and just feel like he's totally, knows the playbook front and back, the athletic gifts are there, and if he can figure out the easy stuff, then he could be a real hell of a quarterback. I really think he has all the talent in the world. I just think that, he wasn't ready to start. I think it probably went to his head a little bit. And, for whatever reason, he's just not accurate. I don't know if the footwork was great at BYU because he had such a veteran offensive line that wouldn't get him touched. But you can't have perfect situations all the time in the NFL to allow one player to have the ability to succeed. Sometimes you need your quarterback to lift you up. And I don't think I've seen Zach lift us up for a win, aside from maybe the fourth quarter of the Steeler game.
Yeah, that's the only example that I could think of. Maybe the Tampa Bay game last year. They didn't win the game, but I thought he played really well.
The Jacksonville game last year, he played all right.
Yeah, he was okay in the Jacksonville game. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, that's one of the things that he has to work on is the processing speed getting quicker, and the footwork is really a big part of that. Now, unfortunately, some of these things happen with more experience, so he's going to have to play to get there. But this is not something that's going to get fixed in 3 days from when they played on Sunday until when they're going to have to play on Thursday here. So. You're kind of just hoping to get through and then, rework some things in the offseason.
Yeah. So what do you think? What would is there any stat line Zach could have in this in this game for the Jaguars that you would play him over a healthy Mike White or a banged up Mike White that was cleared to start?
I don't know. Because even if he had a stellar performance, I'd still be questioning what the legitimacy of it. Even if he completed 70% of his passes, let's say 300 yards, a couple touchdowns, I'd be almost waiting for that other shoe to drop,
Yeah, I think you almost, at that point, you probably start Zach with having Mike as the backup. Like, hey, we don't think Mike's ready to go. We don't want to force him out there. We're going to ride the hot-handed Zach. But as soon as Zach falters in that Seahawks game, then maybe you pull him for White. I don't know. I mean, these last 3 defenses that you face, you have to be able to put up points. And if Zach can't put up points, I think we're going to find out real quick, if the Jets are in on him or not in these final 3 games, which does kind of suck because you used to be able to give a quarterback a little bit more time. And for me, his trade value is so low. It's not like I want to get rid of the kid. I'd just rather have him sit on the bench and not be our quarterback and just learn. And then maybe at some point he becomes a tradable commodity. But that's just not at this point right now.
No, it's definitely not. That's why I think, honestly, I think there's really a real world here where we're in a Mike White and Zach Wilson battle for the starting job next summer because, like you said, his value is that low. I think your only option is really to hold on and hope that it works out. And if he doesn't improve, then you have someone like Mike White who can maybe be the Jets version of what Jimmy G is for San Francisco.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I do see Mike White and Zach Wilson back for a quarterback competition. I don't know if there's another person in mind that really jumps out at me. Like Jordan Love's an interesting situation because of the LaFleur brother connection and the timing of the contracts and everything that's going on with Rodgers, because I do think that's prohibitive. If Rodgers had a better contract, I'd say there's a really good shot we're going to get Aaron Rodgers and have Zach sit behind him for a year, let Rodgers try to win a Super Bowl with the Win Now team, and still try to reclaim that second overall pick in Zach. There is a side to me that wants to explore that option, but then I watch Aaron Rodgers and I think man, he really doesn't look that great either. How much of this is just on him?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, the team around him took a significant step back, but something looks off there for sure.
Jets Maniac Matt says, what an up and down year. Great for a team like us with so many first and second year guys. Winning the next 3 are just the icing on the cake. 9 home games next year. Thursday, join us Warriors in the monsoon. Yeah, I was going to go to the Thursday game. I was, scouting it out. I was like, you know what? If the Jets beat the Lions, then I'll pull the trigger and I'll go to the Jags game. And we clearly did not beat the Lions. And then I saw the weather and I was like, there's no way I'm sitting here to watch a 10-7 matchup with no scoring and the Jets lose on like a last second field. Like, oh man, I'd be so bitter. I couldn't do that.
No, I don't. No. On a Thursday night too, like that's just in the rain. Yeah, I'm all set there.
Yeah. I think for me, it's the at-home experience is so good. I'll roll the dice on missing a win from the comfort of my couch. SB3 comes in and says, Aaron Rodgers, Steve Young, and Tom Brady held clipboards. Let him develop. He is a keeper. I saw a really great thread over on Jet Nation that had the last 20 years of first-round quarterbacks, or maybe it might have been first and second-round quarterbacks, and it said how long quarterbacks sat or did not sit, or like started within their first 4 games or sat 8 or more games, whatever the metric was. And there's virtually like not much of a difference. It's surprising because I always feel like, oh, you sit and learn, maybe you develop into a good quarterback, but we've seen guys sit and learn and not develop into good quarterbacks as well. And I'm sure there's some percentage of guys that it would have helped and other guys that it wouldn't have helped either way. Yeah, I don't know. Zach, because of how raw he was coming out, I think there's a ton of validity to it. I think if I'm going back hindsight to that draft, I'm probably looking at the 49ers and I'm saying, hey, you want to come up and get Trey Lance or Zach Wilson? Like, we'll slide back. We'll take Jimmy Garoppolo to teach our guys this new offense. You have LaFleur and Salah here. Like, that's probably the move if you're playing, Monday morning quarterback in terms of that draft.
Yeah, I mean that's all fun to do now, but in the moment, it's not. You really can't blame them for the decision. I think there was a reasonable case to be made for either Justin Fields or Zach Wilson there at 2, and most people, I feel like really in the media pundits really liked the Zach Wilson pick. There are a lot of people that were really high on him, and I mean this past week was a perfect example of why we saw some really big moments from him, but he just can't do it consistently.
Yeah, I definitely, I don't fault him for it because even when I look at Justin Fields, I can say he's probably the second best quarterback or maybe tied with Mac Jones, depending on how highly you rank Mac Jones's, season last year. I haven't seen enough from Fields aside from like the running. I love what he's doing and the Bears are building around him to give him success now. And I don't think the Jets are doing that with Zach. Like, I don't think we're building an offense built for Zach, for his talents right now, which I think is where you could probably show some flaws in LaFleur's plan. But you see how well LaFleur's plan's working in terms of guys getting open. Even though the quarterback can't execute it, I do like, what I'm seeing. And Mike White just tends to be like the perfect specimen for this offense. It's quick decision-making, fast snap to throw. The guy's gritty. He's a tall quarterback. Like there's just a lot of things to like about Mike White. I don't know. I think he can be a franchise guy. I really do.
I mean, that'd make life a lot easier if Mike White just so happened to be the franchise guy and you're able to bring him back. Then having to continue this search, it's tough, especially if you don't get to see him again the rest of the year. That would be a little disappointing or a blow to him because then people are going to start to argue the injury factor with him.
Yeah, and it's fair, too. I mean, I think the only saving grace for him is that Jimmy G is so injury-prone that if I look at Jimmy G or Mike White, I would prefer Mike White because of the chemistry he has with our players, the cost or perceived cost that he would be, and the upside that he has. It's just, I don't know. I mean, do I want to roll into next season with White versus Wilson with a Super Bowl caliber roster? Like, that to me is the piece of the puzzle that kind of irritates me a bit. And I don't know the answer. I mean, if anything were to happen, I don't think a trade happens until close to training camp when you can split up some of these salary cap hits. Aaron Rodgers is the interesting one, I think. I don't think Carr is going anywhere. Brady being a free agent, he looks so washed. I don't And I also don't want to like sell my soul for that. Like if Brady winds up winning a Super Bowl here for the Jets, it would be more about Brady lifting the terrible Jets up and winning a Super Bowl. And that's not how I want to win a ring.
Yeah, no, exactly. That he would be the story more than this team would be the story. I agree with you there. Plus, like I don't know. With everything going on in his personal life, there's just a lot that goes into that. Same with Rodgers, like the on the field and off the field stuff with both those guys. It's just it would bring a lot of that to the table here. That's what makes it so complicated. I don't know what the right answer is. I almost feel like the White Wilson competition could be your best option because both guys are obviously familiar with the team. The team really likes Mike White, and what we saw was really promising this year. And with Wilson's raw talent, like if something ever clicked, then that could also elevate this team. But I don't know if Mike White could be what Jimmy G was for San Francisco, then I still think this is a really, really damn good team next year.
Yeah, for sure. I think if it winds up being a Mike White versus Zach Wilson quarterback competition, which I do agree, I think that's where this is all trending. I would like to see them draft a quarterback, probably in the third round, someone that could develop. So you're not putting all your eggs in like those two guys' baskets. I do think that Mike White probably signs a 1-year deal. Well, you're going to have to decide after next season, like, hey, are you rolling with Zach Wilson or are you rolling with Mike White? But I think the kid's got a ton of talent, and I want to see more from him because, like Matt said, if we don't see any more from Mike White this season, I don't know how you justify paying him like any sort of substantial amount to try and lead this team next year. Andrew Yale comes in, says, we need O-line help, no run game, no pass protection for the quarterback. I really wonder about the run game and why this is happening right now. Because is it so much on the offensive line, or is it a product of defenses not believing Zach can beat them with their arm, and they are now playing, more guys in the box and committing against the run because they know the coaching staff isn't really putting it all on Zach? What do you think, Matt?
This past week, I think that was a big part of it. I think they were, daring Zach to beat him over the top. I do think injuries are a huge reason for the offensive line struggles. Like losing AVT was just huge for this team. They're on their millionth tackle. Laken Tomlinson has been pretty bad this year. Was someone who was, a Pro Bowler for the 49ers not that long ago. You thought it'd be a seamless fit, but it really hasn't been. So I think there's a lot of factors that really go into it. They've definitely, they've taken their lumps with the amount of injuries. I think that's part of the equation here too.
Yeah, you got to think first round has got to be a favorite for like tackle or guard. I saw McShay's mock draft. He had us taking a guard from Florida. That seemed a little, I don't know. I'm not going to hate any offensive line pick, I'll be honest. And like moving on from Tomlinson and having a guy that might be like AVT caliber who did play next to Max Mitchell just prior to that and, increased his playing time. Maybe he gets better because he only had 1 year in the SEC with Osiris Torrance, I think was the last name. Him, I think the tackle from Georgia's interesting. I think that's probably where I'd start my search. But offensive line help we desperately need here. Johnny P comes in and says, did you see Daniel Jeremiah's comments on Eisen? Likely he is just echoing Joe Douglas, and he said Zach is bad fit, but LaFleur won't adapt. They may fire Mike LaFleur if no progress. Is that what that's supposed to be, P.O.? Yeah, we were kind of talking about that a little bit earlier, where it doesn't feel like we're building an offense for our quarterback. And financially, it's cheaper to move on from your offensive coordinator than it is to move on from your quarterback. But it just feels like with everyone except Zach, this offense is working. And it seems like, LaFleur, by and large, across the league is seen in a positive light. So I don't know how much I want to bail on that after seeing such rough quarterback play or rough offensive coordinator plays for the last 10, 15 years. I did see the comments. I do think Jeremiah is probably on that same wavelength, but I'm just curious to see if they'd rather bail on Zach or bail on Mike. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't necessarily think I agree with Daniel Jeremiah. I think, a lot of the stuff that Zach did at BYU made sense for a West Coast offense, and I think they were banking on Zach being able to do the small things that he's making extremely difficult, and then his off the script stuff would kind of take him to the next level, I guess, or the offense potentially to the next level. But I don't agree that he's necessarily a bad fit for this offense. I think LaFleur is okay. I don't think he's like I don't think he should be fired. I don't think he's done a bad job, but I also don't think he's been amazing. I think it's fair to criticize him, but I honestly don't know if they make any changes to either coordinator position. Obviously, Obrich's done a really good job this year, but I know LaFleur is kind of public enemy number one with a lot of people, but I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, I tend to agree. SB3 says consistency is the word, Matt. Yeah, if we could play consistently across the offensive line, the defense, really anywhere, and that's kind of what if we're losing because of inconsistency, but the talent is clearly there, that's the telltale sign for a young team. Like, young teams need experience to have that consistency. We saw it with the Bills. The Bills were a young team the first 2 years of Josh Allen's career. They were making a few mistakes. They had some really high highs. They had some really low lows. And you saw year 3 of them playing together, all of it started clicking together. So that's what's exciting about the Jets going into next year, is you expect the full team to have that level of growth. And then you just hope you get, the positive side of the quarterback situation.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. The inconsistency is really the tough thing right now. And we said that's why they're losing these games. They're not getting blown out. The talent level is there. They're a young team. They need to figure out how to win. I think they could potentially get to that point, but it's it's part of the learning curve, unfortunately.
SB3 also says Mike White equals mediocrity. I want more. Bring a quarterback in. Yeah, look, I understand why Mike White could be mediocrity. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks early in their career before they get enough on-field game time experience that probably fall into similar categories. I think the lack of mobility from Mike White in terms of his running ability is where people might be left, desiring a little bit more. I would argue that his maneuverability within the pocket is shifty enough that it allows him to avoid sacks. It just doesn't create that extra dynamic, option in terms of running. So do I want to bring in a more dynamic quarterback? I think that's where you draft one. I think you go for a third round kind of guy that has just some crazy high upside, super raw, just let him learn, figure out the whole Mike White, Zach Wilson experience. If at best case, Zach Wilson is the guy and you let Mike White walk after next season, or you determine Mike White's the guy and you sign him and then you wind up trading Zach, you still need that backup quarterback either way. So I would invest one of our draft picks into a backup. What are your thoughts, Matt, on like Gardner Minshew? He's someone who's going to get a start this week against Dallas that I think Jet fans should keep an eye on. He's someone that, was traded from Jacksonville after Jacksonville selected Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall, played with a horrible team. He gets traded to Philly, has, the quarterback competition with Hurts in August, but Hurts, obviously wins that and is now playing at an MVP caliber level. You look at the 2 times that Minshew has been put into the game, and he actually has like a pretty decent, box score from those games. With Joe Douglas coming from Philadelphia, I do think there is some inside knowledge one way or the other, but I just don't know. I can't figure out a way to get Minshew here without like really making things weird. I just think he has a swagger that I really like. I think there's some upside. I mean, I was looking at his wiki the other day, and it was like, I think he's got like 45 touchdowns to 12 interceptions in his career and like 6,000 yards passing.
Yeah, he I pulled up his pro football reference page while you were talking about him. He has 41 touchdowns, 12 picks, 6,000 yards. In 12 starts in 2019, he had 21 touchdowns to 6 picks and was throwing 233.6 yards per game. I would be intrigued by Gardner Minshew. He does have an energy and a swagger about him that is a lot of fun. And if I think that clicked here in New York, man, that could be really something special.
Josh comes in, says Steve Young talks a lot about defenses not winning Super Bowls anymore. Says you need an Allen, a Herbert, a Mahomes. Thoughts? Thanks again for all you do. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I think that's why you draft someone like Zach Wilson and you don't go with someone safe like Mac Jones. Like Mac Jones to me was the vanilla ice cream of the 2021 draft. It's like, wow, good old reliable. Like you're never going to get some fantastic flavor out of vanilla ice cream, but you know what you're going to get. And that's kind of that's Mac Jones for me. Justin Fields, there's a large gamble for sure based on how maybe some other Ohio State quarterbacks played. And I think that was unfairly translated onto him. I think you look at Trey Lance, there's a lot to love with the arm strength, the speed, but he didn't have the sample size. He obviously only had one game during the COVID season, and he didn't look great in that season. He really only had 1 year of starting experience. And then obviously Trevor Lawrence was going to be what he was going to be. And then you have Zach with all the upside. Again, there's just weird things that you may or may not have liked in certain spots, but I think Zach has the athletic upside of an Allen, a Herbert, a Mahomes. He just hasn't showed the low end ability to make the easy throws.
Yep. No, the 100%. You could tell why he went early because of the physical traits and the wow throws. But you have to be able to do the little things right. And the things that, Mike White does that makes things look super, super easy. And I agree with this comment here. I do think you need an elite level quarterback. I mean, look at what happened with the Rams last year. That was a really, really good team that couldn't get over the hump with Jared Goff. And then they bring in Matt Stafford, who is a significant upgrade, and they go out and win a Super Bowl. All the teams that were there, Joe Burrow, what he was able to do with Cincinnati and elevate that roster to the point to go on that run was a ton of fun. But I do think that you need to have a good quarterback in today's NFL to win a Super Bowl. Yes, you can get to the playoffs and be a good team with a really good defense, and defense is a part of it. I'm not saying like, oh, you could be like the Miami Dolphins of this year and have an elite level offense and a terrible defense and you'll be this amazing team. I don't think that's fair, but I do think you need a really damn good quarterback in order to win consistently in this league.
Yeah, so it kind of runs you into that situation of, do you believe Mike White can be that, or do the Jets have to, go a different direction? Do you put all your eggs in like some other basket? I don't know.
It's
going to
tough.
be interesting to see.
I'm glad I'm not Joe Douglas.
Yeah, seriously. Dylan says Huff needs to be re-signed. Yes, there's no way he's going anywhere. Jets will hit him with the first round tender. I'd be very surprised if they did anything less. They should re-sign him for more than that anyway, because I'd be pretty irritated if we lost Huff and got like the 30th pick in the draft or something like that. I think that would be a loss for us.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think Huff needs to be back for sure. He's been fantastic this year. You got to figure out a way to bring him in.
Pump Up the Champ says, looking to the offseason, I'm worried about our offensive line and special teams. Do we go after Punt God since he's innocent now? And what offensive lineman free agents are out there? I do not want to go after the Punt God. I'm sorry. Punting isn't as important to me as like the headaches that come with the player. I think you could probably find, halfway decent punting somewhere across the line. As far as the offensive line, I do agree. I think we do need to bring in some help there. I think I would look first and foremost at Jack Conklin. He has void years coming up on his contract, which means he is going to be a free agent. He will not be able to be franchise tagged by the Cleveland Browns. And Joe Douglas clearly needs tackle help in any capacity, whether it be left side or right side. And I would plug in Conklin on the right side with Max Mitchell behind him. And I would look at the left-hand side and I'd say, okay, at the very least, we have Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton under contract for next year. You determine, hey, is Brown even going to come back next year? If he's not going to come back, then I think you go with Becton plus a first-round pick tackle. That's probably where I'm looking. Honestly, I would like to retain Connor McGovern, and then I would run it back with AVT and Tomlinson. Your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I agree with your logic behind it. I think Conklin is someone who he was almost a Jet a couple of years ago when he signed with the Browns, and it seemed like a good fit as a potential trade partner. It didn't end up happening, but that's definitely someone who I think you could keep your eye on. I like the idea of Max Mitchell being back as depth because we know injuries happen. If Brown's good to come back, him and Mackay on your left side, and if Mackay's healthy, who knows? Maybe Mackay beats him out in camp, and then when the inevitable injury comes, Dwayne Brown's waiting in the wings. And I think you have to bring back Connor McGovern. I think he's been really solid for this team, and then that just makes life a little bit easier. You can't have these turnovers of 3 new starters on the offensive line every year and start to try to, get some consistency going.
Yeah, you said it. Consistency, that's going to be key for us. SB3 says, agree with JP LaFleur forcing Zach. I think he's saying Daniel Jeremiah. LaFleur forcing Zach to play in a cage. I think they're forcing him to play in a cage almost. It feels almost like the Mark Sanchez years where they had like the color coded cards to get like which plays out on the field. Like it feels like they have kid gloves on trying to make Zach Wilson not lose us the game. Like that's how I viewed the last Patriot game was they didn't trust Zach Wilson at all. They clipped his wings. They said, you will not lose us this game. And in the end, that caused them to lose the game. So yeah, I don't know. I do think there needs to be a little bit of an unhinged thing. Like especially like if the Jets lose this week and we're just like totally out of it, just rip the Band-Aid off and just say, okay, let's go have fun. Let's see what happens. Let's throw shit at the wall for the final 2 games and just see what works with this kid.
Yeah, I think we saw glimpses of that in this game against the Lions, but at times, look, my biggest critique with LaFleur, I think he can get a little too cute sometimes in the red zone, but then I think he gets conservative with Zach after a mistake. Now, it's also tough on LaFleur because we've seen when Zach makes that one mistake, it kind of all unravels. So it's kind of hard to judge, your coordinator when your quarterback's unraveling. But, to their credit, they were able to get it back on track at the end there in the fourth quarter. It was kind of just too little too late, though.
Thomas Cahill drops in with a member super chat, says linebackers and safeties lost that game. Yeah, I mean, when you look at the tight end touchdown, that was brutal, and how they utilize the rest of that offense. For me, something that's been frustrating, and I don't know what to make of it. I would like to see Sauce play more of the Revis role. I'd like to see him follow the best team's receiver and roll coverage the opposite direction. Like putting Sauce and Reed on the outside on their own sides allows offenses to dictate where they're going to play their weapons. Like if I'm Minnesota, I'm not putting Justin Jefferson on Sauce. I'm having him slide into the slot with Michael Carter all damn day. Like, why would you ever test the outside corners on the Jets?
No, it doesn't make any sense to. And, we saw Michael Carter struggle this past week with Amon-Ra St. Brown. But, yeah, DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner are so good. I don't know why you'd want to test them. And, rightfully so, the Lions did not test Sauce Gardner.
Brian Kelly comes in, says, was at the game. Zach looked off. The offense never looked settled. Let's get Carr in the offseason and shop Zach, and the rest is gravy. I really like Derek Carr. I don't think they're going to move on from Carr. I think he's there for another season. I think McDaniels is there for another season. And then I think McDaniels is the issue there, but I think they're going to wait to pull the trigger on the whole reset button until one more year. I think you don't trade all that for Devontae Adams just to try it one time with Derek Carr. So I would be shocked if Carr waived his no trade clause for this upcoming season. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, that was a question that someone asked me on Just Jets today, and I feel like there's a lot of people who poo-poo the idea of Derek Carr, but I don't get that at all. He's someone who consistently throws for 4,000 yards. He's going to give you right around 25 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions, something like that. I think you sign up for that. And I think that would immediately elevate this team. I agree with you, though. I don't know how likely it is to get a guy like him to come here.
Yeah, I would say he is probably the best case scenario for the Jets because, like you said, he's so consistent with a team that has been in rough shape over in Oakland or Vegas. And then you look at all the other options. There's warts on every kind of quarterback that's going to be available, and I think that's what makes the perceived miss of Zach Wilson just a little bit more frustrating. SB3 says, Reason I say bring a quarterback in is because we are all surprised with how great the talent is we now have. Psyched. So if the strategy is win now, then bring in solid quarterback to do that while Zach develops. I agree with you. And that's where I kind of like fall in this weird spot with Mike White is like, I would have signed up for Jimmy G before Jimmy G got hurt. And I really do think Mike White can be like store brand Jimmy G. And, potentially have more upside. He's like the Kirkland brand, if you will. The Kirkland brand's not too bad. I would like that. But I understand what you're saying. Like, if you go out after a quarterback, this is a Super Bowl caliber roster. I don't want to waste this opportunity. Like, that's where I'm a little hung up here. Like, is there any part of you that's a little, like, bummed maybe about having to either see or, do you think a Mike White versus Zach Wilson quarterback competition is enough for Joe Douglas?
That's a really good point because, eventually you got to start translating wins here. And it's starting to go that direction now. But, you want to build off that, for going on and going forward. And maybe that's what pressures them to trying to make a bigger move. I think you can make a strong case for, the reason to go after a Carr or even bring in a veteran like a Rodgers or Brady or whatever because of just how good the rest of the team is. But you're taking a risk either way. So I guess it's whatever you're most comfortable with or whatever you think is going to work. So I'm a little bit apprehensive to do it, but I completely understand why or the logic behind making a move like that.
Yeah, it's almost like if you go after a Brady or a Rodgers, you get that almost the best of both worlds. You get the potential of a win now quarterback, one of the best of all time. You're gambling on them having a career resurgence at a much later stage of their career. I don't want to say resurgence because obviously Brady has been good the last few years and Rodgers has been good up until this year. But it feels like, that might be the best of both worlds because then they don't say they're giving up on Zach. You give him more time to learn behind one of these quarterbacks. I would be really peeved if we allowed Mike White to go elsewhere, didn't extend a contract, went after Brady or Rodgers, and then everything just went up in flames and Mike White goes on to have like even a Kirk Cousins level, type of career. I'd be pretty pissed off, I think.
Yeah, that's a tough part. If you decide to let him go, you better hope it doesn't work. Yeah,
seriously. Albert comes in, says, with a super sticker. It says, #1 fan. It's a pair jumping up and down, which is funny. I don't know why it doesn't show it on the thing, but I see it over in the side over there. So thank you, Albert. Let's see. I saw another one in here. Anthony G. Anthony G says, jet the F up, boys. In the Cayman, smoking a Cuban and having some scotch. Hoping Zach runs the table here. Let's effing go, Jets. Anthony, we wish we were with you, enjoying a nice Cuban cigar in the Cayman Islands with some scotch. Sounds wonderful.
That sounds fantastic. I am very jealous right now.
Dude, if Zach runs the table, they'll have so much energy behind him. I guess that's an interesting topic, right, Matt? Like what happens if Zach runs the table, gets us to the playoffs, and I don't know. Like, let's say he looks bad in a playoff game. Like, then what do the Jets do? Like, does it change our thought process at all?
Yeah.
Or if he looks good if he looks good in the playoffs, then you probably just say, okay, we'll run it back with like some level of competition.
Yeah. What if? Okay. I'm gonna spin your spin at me and spin it right back at you. What if they win out and they pull an upset in the first round? Let's say they win a game and then lose to like, I don't know, Kansas City in the divisional round. But
yeah,
Zach gets him there and wins a playoff game. I feel like that would be kind of difficult to make a change after. No,
I think it depends how you win it.
True.
I think if you win it with Zach, with Zach as quarterback, not necessarily because of Zach, but if you win it with Zach, I think it may lower to some extent the asking price of Mike White. Like, is there a team out there, or what team out there do you think is the biggest competition for Mike White for the Jets? Because that's what I keep running into. Like, I keep hearing people say, like, oh, someone's going to pay Mike White. And I keep saying, like, but he only has 6 starts. Like, is someone really going to pay him if the Jets are looking at Zach Wilson? We're saying, like, we'd rather go with this guy over Mike White. Like, that. Like, I don't know what that says about him then.
Yeah. If honestly, like, Tampa Bay, maybe, if Brady leaves.
Tampa's an interesting one.
I'm trying to think this off the top of my head.
Houston, possibly.
I don't know how they don't take a quarterback first. Like, I'm thinking of a spot where he
but
can
I think
go
you
start.
I feel, yeah, I guess, but it's going to have to happen before the draft. So I think a team could sign him hoping to have almost a prove-it type year. Like, I don't think he's going to get a long multi-year deal. I think if there's any inkling that might happen, we need to either transition tag or franchise tag him and shop him. There's no reason for the Jets to allow him to walk if he's going to get that kind of contract.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really challenging. It's not easy, man. There's going to be a lot of tough decisions this offseason.
Pooch Guy says, Ryan, you just had to do draft content, #Jinx. Yeah, so I made one video about the Todd McShay mock draft because it was his 1.0. I was like, I don't want to talk about the draft. And then we go out there and we flub up a game against the Lions. But I like doing the mock drafts. I like learning about all that stuff because that's how I learn about the players. I'm sitting here watching other guys who, before I do any analysis on these college prospects, I'm looking at other mock drafts like, oh, they have the Jets looking at this guy. Well, let me see what this guy's about. And then I just present it in video form to you, goons.
Yeah, that's a completely reasonable way to do it. I've been so out of the prospect loop this year for the first time in probably since 2016. Like the last 5 years have been so invested in college football and through the draft at this point. Last year we were talking about was George Karlaftis worth a top 10 pick, or should you go wide receiver, offensive line at pick 10, 𝐒𝐿 𝐿𝐴𝐽𝐻 at all that stuff was what we were talking about. Now I'd rather do the quarterback discourse and talk about some potential playoff games. So it's been weird, right?
Yeah, it's nice talking a little bit of playoffs instead of talking about the draft. And I think it's a good thing. We're trending in the right direction. I don't want to have to talk about the draft until this time of the year when things start getting locked in terms of slotting. SB3 says, we can run the table, gotta believe Jets. Dude, from your lips to God's ears. I think we can run the table. We said it before. The Jets could have won any one of these last 4 games, all of them or none of them. I do think any one of these teams, I think Jacksonville is getting hot at the right time. I think Miami is at least showing that it's very tough to take them out, with them going toe-to-toe with Buffalo. And then Seattle, I think Seattle's probably the most winnable game of these 3, which sounds weird because I feel like we should be able to beat Jacksonville at home. But I think we're just catching Jacksonville at a weird time. I'm hoping because they had such an emotional win last week in overtime, maybe on a short week traveling in the cold, there's a little bit for them to screw up here. That's the hope.
Yeah, no, but that's all reasonable. Defensively, they are really, really bad. So if you get more than 17 points, you should win the game. But they're hot right now, and Trevor Lawrence looks really, really good. So it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, do you think there's any how much of an issue do you see with the amount of points the offense is scoring, whether it be Mike White under center for us and not getting into the red zone? He was 1 of 6, I think, in the Vikings game. The Bills game, obviously we didn't score a crazy ton of points as well. And then this past week with Zach, you only have the 17 points. So is this more of a LaFleur issue, or do you see it more as why does it appear to be a double standard? Why is Zach getting so much heat for having maybe similar or different struggles than Mike White?
Well, I think people are going to be harder on you when you're the number 2 pick in a draft. I think that's part of it. I think people are frustrated with him and they see what Mike White's done and are excited by that. And we know the backup quarterback's always the most loved guy. Everyone wants to say, oh, go to the backup. And, it's worked so far. I think he's played pretty well in those 3 games, but I don't think White's been perfect either. I know that, some people were ready to, crown him as the starter and the future of this team. I don't know if I'm there, but I think the offense has definitely looked more in sync with him in those 3 games than with Zach this year.
Yeah, I think that's kind of for me. It's the eyeball test, which it sounds weird to say because there's no stats to back up the eyeball test for the most part. Like you can kind of look at like where each quarterback ranks, and you see. I think Zach Wilson. I don't know if he's above 25th ranked in anything, and in like a majority of the categories, he's the last ranked quarterback. Where Mike White, I think he's as high as 15th in some categories. I mean, I think snap to throw, he's like top 5 in the league in terms of how fast he processes. So like for me, White is kind of the perfect specimen to run this offense, where Zach is just, you know, you need to have the knowledge of the playbook, the experience, and I feel like he would benefit from sitting a little bit.
Yeah, I think, you know, if in a perfect world, I think White's the best opportunity for this team right now to make the playoffs and win games for this year. But, you know, sitting down and working on that footwork in the offseason is probably the best thing for him.
Do you see any situation where the Jets bring back Mike White and Zach becomes the starter? Like, do you think he'll be able to take the belt from Mike White, or do you think Mike kind of comes in as the perceived starter for next year?
I think White would probably have the slight advantage, but I don't think that puts Zach completely out of it. I think it's dependent on his improvement in the offseason. Because I mean, Zach does have the higher ceiling, but it's the floor is just so low, as we're seeing right now with White. The interceptions have gone away, it feels like, and it seems like he could be a middle of the road kind of guy.
Yeah, for me, there's almost a little bit of like, okay, is there a downside, a perceived downside to trying to attract free agents with Mike White versus Zach Wilson quarterback competition, or does it not necessarily matter because we're focusing more internally on our guys? Like, do you think we'd have an issue if we run into, hey, well, who's your starting quarterback? Oh, it's going to be Mike White. Like, why would I sign here?
Well, I don't think it's going to really matter because they're not really looking to add like big time skill position guys. It's not like you're looking out and you're like, oh, I'm going to sign a tight end. You just signed 2 last year. A wide receiver, if they're bringing in one, would be for depth. You have a wide receiver 1 in Garrett Wilson. Elijah under contract next year. So I think you're just looking for depth there. And I don't know, I guess if you want to say offensive lineman, but they could even potentially attack that through the draft too.
Yeah, for sure. Matt, can you still see me? I'm having a little bit of glitching on my end. I can see you.
Yeah, I could see you okay, but I look a little bit glitchy coming through.
A little pixelated right now. That's okay. Yeah, it's an interesting situation. For me, when I'm looking at this wide receiver room too, like I don't think Corey Davis comes back next year. Denzel Mims, I don't think I want to rely on him to be the guy. I do think there's going to be a need for some type of big red zone threat wide receiver, someone like a Plexico Burress that can just go up and get a ball. Kind of what we were hoping Mims would eventually be. Do you sort of see something similar? Like you see Garrett Wilson, you see Elijah Moore, and it just feels like we're missing maybe that Deebo Samuel type of chip here.
Yeah, they need something else to add, I think, to this team and to the wide receiver core. They have a couple of nice pieces, but I'm with you. I think Corey Davis, I think, is probably a cap casualty in the offseason with the number of injuries he's had over the last couple of years. And Denzel Mims has gotten better this year, but I don't think is in a spot where I'm comfortable giving him that full wide receiver 3 role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair. Thomas Cahill comes in and says, the draft. How about a quarterback who runs like Fields and has an arm like Allen, Anthony Richardson, in the second round? So in the Todd McShay mock first round, they had Anthony Richardson going, I believe it was 10th overall. So he wouldn't have made it to us at pick 17. This is the quarterback for me that I think is the most intriguing. And if we have to pull the trigger on him in the first, I want the Jets to really know that's the guy. Like I don't think this is a quarterback you start in the first year. I don't know if you start him in the second year. Like I'd still probably bring back Mike White. I just don't know how you justify drafting him at pick 17 and passing on a tackle instead for me.
That's the issue. He's not going to be there in the second round, and he's a project quarterback. It's kind of like Trey Lance. Not that they're exactly the same player, but Trey Lance was very much so looked at as a project, and I think Anthony Richardson's going to be a project too. So that's not someone who's going to, be a first rounder, come in and play right away.
Yeah, he feels like a quarterback that should be going to a team that has a QB in place. Someone like maybe a Minnesota who has Kirk Cousins in place, and they don't have to worry about playing him in the next few years because they have Kirk playing at the level he's playing right now. I don't know. I'd have to really look at the quarterback class and do some analysis because I don't know enough about this draft class to make any sort of educated decision at this point in time. Richardson's just the one that's come up a few times now, especially with me watching Osiris because of the McShay mock draft. There is a little bit of value in that in terms of like the guard from Florida because you have Richardson who runs around a lot and Osiris didn't have any penalties this year, which means he wasn't running down the field. I think that's not a penalty. Is that a penalty in college? Can you run down the field as an offensive lineman in college? Or is that a penalty in college as well? Like
That's
if the ball's not...
Yeah, I think
so.
that's got to be a penalty, yeah.
Okay. I never actually thought that out loud until just this second. So
me neither.
Was not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I would have a hard time going quarterback in the first round. I don't mind quarterback in the second round. I don't love it because for me, this draft should help set this team up for their Super Bowl next year. And I think taking the tackle and taking a safety or taking a tackle and taking a linebacker, like those positions will translate well. Maybe tackle, you may not have, 100% success rate right off the bat, but you'll have enough contribution that, where a quarterback, I don't think you're getting any contribution to this team next year at all. And you're wasting a prime year of Sauce and Brees and Carter and Garrett Wilson and all these guys. I'm frustrated. I feel like if I were to say I'd take a quarterback in the second, then I should just take a quarterback in the first. I'm not a big advocate of second round quarterbacks. It's usually like the mid round guys that could at least be a backup with potential upside.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you there. I think that's the route that they go. I don't want to take a first round quarterback because I do think I would like to fill out offensive line, linebacker, safety are all positions that I think the Jets should be looking to attack. But I have no issue if they want to take a swing with the third or fourth round pick on a quarterback.
Let's see what the chat is talking about over here. Someone makes a point that the Jets forever come back. You don't know sports. You guys seems like they're arguing in the chat a little bit. I'm not paying attention. Yeah, that's what happens when we don't have Green Bean. Green Bean usually pays attention to the chat.
He's the chat guy. I know. He's the chat guy, usually mixing it up. When it's just the two of us, it's kind of hard to go back and forth.
Yeah, so for those of you guys that don't know, that watch us, I'm the color commentator. Matt usually has stats and information up on his screen over there, the quick notes, and then Green Bean is our chat guy, and we kind of balance everything across the three of us. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, we have a good system, I think, between the three of us.
Yeah, we've got 450 people in here. Unfortunately, we only have 142 likes, which means we're only going to have 5 qualifiers for our t-shirt giveaway at the end of the stream. So make sure you hit that like button. It's ridiculous. Come on, gang. Where did I see this? I just saw this in here. Sir Drinks a Lot says, Hendon Hooker thoughts. That's the Tennessee quarterback, right?
Yeah. I don't know a ton about him, if I'm being completely honest with you. I haven't watched him enough.
Let's look up his profile.
I know the big three. CJ
Lewis,
Stroud, Bryce Young.
Stroud.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go to the Draft Network. I enjoy the Draft Network's visuals on quarterback. So Hendon Hooker, 6'4", 218 pounds. He has 3,135 yards, 32 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, has a QBR of 124.6. Let's see. His background, his father was a star quarterback at North Carolina A&T, where his younger brother is currently a quarterback. Began his college career at Virginia Tech before grad transferring to Tennessee ahead of the 2021 season. Co-wrote a faith-based children's book titled The ABC of Scripture for athletes with his brother, led his high school team to 2 state championships, starred in basketball in high school where he scored more than 1,000 points and was a 3-time All-Metro Conference selection. Scheme tendencies, vertical spread, 2022 projected role is starting quarterback. Usually they say like a projected round on here, and I don't see that here. They said he's the number 126 player on the board. So that would put him back in like the 5th round, 4th, 5th round. I guess that's somewhere in the right spot.
My biggest concern with not watching him a ton, he's turning 25 in January.
That's what I was going to say. When you're a grad transfer, that's not a young... You're talking about like Brandon Whedon.
Yeah, Whedon or Bryce Petty was like 100 years old when he was drafted too. That would be the one. And if he's a project, right, because you're taking him late and then it's probably going to be a couple years before he can start. You're looking at what, age 27 before he's finally getting your look?
Yeah, right now the Draft Network has Bryce Young as the number 7 prospect, CJ Stroud number 14, Will Levis number 22, Anthony Richardson 28, Jaron Hall, BYU 78, Cameron Ward 125, Hendon Hooker 126, Malik Cunningham 170, Tanner McKee, and Spencer Rattler to round out the next 2 at 185 and 220. The pros for Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker didn't initially earn the Volunteers starting role in 2021, but it didn't take long for him to take the reins and flourish. Hooker features a sturdy frame with good height and big hands. He has good arm strength and is capable of driving the football outside of the numbers and pushing the ball down the field. He has impressive moments of accuracy to all levels of the field. I love how clean his lower body throwing mechanics are. He sets consistent bases and finds consistent sequencing for both quick throws and shots down the field. His feet are quiet in the pocket. Hooker is an athletic quarterback with good mobility, offering a dual threat skill set. His physical ability creates a wide open playbook. Those are the pros. His cons. Hendon Hooker operates in a vertical spread tempo offense with very little translatability to the next level. The receiver alignments are incredibly wide and the vertical passing concepts are mostly foreign to the NFL. The system feasts on manufacturing space with very little progression, style passing. Hooker isn't tasked with making many decisions and throws are often predetermined. Hooker hasn't showcased himself as a quarterback who makes anticipatory throws. Further complicating his projection to the NFL is that he turns 25 in January of 2023. So that's kind of what Matt was alluding to there. Yeah, I don't know. I keep saying I want a quarterback in the mid rounds, but like if Hooker is the quarterback we take in the middle rounds and he's 25 and he's already like almost, he's 3 years older than Zach, and like it's like I don't know if that's the right move.
No. If he's 21 years old, that's a completely different conversation. Then you're talking about him being like 23, 24 when he's ready to start instead of like, I don't know, almost 30.
Yeah, that's not okay. There's no situation where I want to have our second-year quarterback be a 26-year-old player. That seems slightly concerning. Although, oddly enough, Mike White is going to be our quarterback that most of us want to come back, and he is going to be like, I think, 26 or 27 next year, if I have my years correct.
At least he's got some starting experience under his belt, though. So
right? I think so. I think it all helps, especially because he's been with the team a little bit. Green Beans Burner says, yes, let's take another young quarterback. So after 20 starts, we are burying him and begging for another. Yeah, no, I don't want to take a young quarterback early in this draft. I would prefer mid-round, someone that can sit and develop, because like Burner is talking about here, you don't want to have this kid thrown into the fire and us screaming for our pitchforks already. That's the downside of being in a New York market and drafting a quarterback so highly that needs time to sit and learn, because we're not a patient fan base by any stretch of the imagination.
No, which complicates this even more.
Oh, for sure. Let's see. Jerome says, from a MILF to a hooker.
There you go. Yeah.
That's the sign, right? That'll be my next fantasy football team name if we get them.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Artist formerly known as Indy Jet says, didn't he tear his ACL twice now? I did not know that. Did he actually do that? Someone let me know.
That's not great if so.
Herndon, let's say Hooker ACL. Oh no, that's not what came up. Let's see here. Herndon Hooker ACL. So November 20th, they said was when he tore his ACL. So he's not coming back till like, it's probably a redshirt year for him next year. That's not good either.
No, yeah, I think I'm all set there. I'm out.
Yep. Yeah, that's enough for me. I don't know how many years of eligibility he has, and I don't know if it would even help him to go back to school another year given his age, but that doesn't seem remotely appealing to me anymore. Let's see. $1,189 Paris says the Jets need to draft developmental players so they can replace and fill in when players leave or get hurt. Don't waste a pick on a quarterback. Yeah, we still need a third quarterback at some point in time. And I don't know, like, is Strevler enough of the guy? Because Strevler's kind of old too. Isn't Strevler like 27?
Yeah, I don't know if they haven't activated him the last couple of weeks, I just don't know if they really trust him. I think he's fun. I think it'd be great to have him in a package and, you know, if things go really bad, maybe see what he could do because I have no interest in watching Joe Flacco again, but I just don't think they view him as a serious option if they won't even activate him right now.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is political, though. Like, how much of that is, hey, we have Joe Flacco and, like, the optics maybe of Flacco getting benched when you're not really comfortable with playing Strevler anyway. Like, maybe there's a situation where Strevler's back next year as the third quarterback. I don't actually know what his – let's see what his contract is.
It's got to be pretty cheap, I'd imagine.
Well, I just meant as far as years. Okay, so he's only under contract for this year. So it was this year for, like, $250,000. And he's 27 years old. So, I don't know. I'd like to see him come back. I don't want to invest a ton of money into the quarterback position if we're having Mike White versus Zach Wilson next year, which hurts because that feels like we're wasting a year. Maybe.
Or maybe it clicks for one of them and they're good.
Yeah. But is there any, like, I don't know. I guess you're going all in on those two guys, and that's just, it is what it is. It seems like the most likely situation.
Right? And like, obviously, like I said, it's a gamble. It's also a gamble to bring someone else in. It's kind of just crappy that it hasn't been the number 2 pick has just been good right from Jump Street. That would have made your life a million times easier. But again, yeah, Joe Douglas is going to have his work cut out for him over the next few months because it's not an easy decision.
Rodrigo Costa says, honest question, Zach ends this season as a Jet, but what makes us draft another one? No visible progress a month before the draft? I would be very surprised if we pulled the trigger on a quarterback early in this draft. I mean, maybe that's the time you do want to pull the trigger on a quarterback because then you don't have teams jumping you, but it feels like this team is so ready to potentially win a Super Bowl with the exception of the quarterback position, to roll the dice on another player that's young, that's going to need another 2 years before we're like, oh, well, now he understands the system, and it's this huge playbook because Michael LaFleur has this massive playbook of plays. Like, that to me doesn't sound very appealing, especially since Mike White has that understanding. Like, for me, if we don't retain Mike White, I think Jimmy G or Minshew would be my pivot, and I would make the deadline like, hey, Mike, we need to sign you before free agency starts. If you want to look elsewhere, we are going to have to pivot and look a different direction because we can't hang our season in the balance, but we want you back. We want you signed before we get to free agency.
Right. And I don't necessarily know who's throwing the bag at him this offseason. Like, I keep seeing that as a concern. And I know we talked about it earlier with maybe someone like Tampa Bay as a potential threat, but really I think the place where he'd get the best value for him would be with the Jets in a competition because he's going to get a big bump up in pay and a realistic chance to start. So I don't see him going anywhere. I think he sticks.
Yeah, I almost think it was actually to our benefit that he got hurt in the Bills game because he at least will. I think his best option is to stay with the Jets. I think he knows the offense well enough. I think he knows the players well enough. I think the players and the coaches and everyone wants him. He feels so similar to the Ryan Fitzpatrick 2015 to 2016 season. And I just don't want it to be 2016 where like Mike White turns back into a pumpkin and then like Zach Wilson just isn't the guy. And now we're sitting here talking mock drafts, already halfway through the season. Like that's what I'm just trying to avoid altogether.
That would be bad. I don't want
I want high floor. Like that's where like Jimmy G to me is like interesting, but if White can be that, I just don't I don't trust either one to be healthy. Like Mike White gets hurt every time he plays.
So does Jim. I'd rather trust our own guy, I guess, right now. But with Jimmy getting hurt again, that really threw a wrench in because I thought that was such an obvious choice. But then it's like, okay, this guy just had another season-ending injury. Like this is an issue. Yeah,
that's definitely what did it for me, especially seeing Mike White play to at least a caliber that I would consider comparable to Jimmy G. Mm-hmm. I think we're talking ourselves in circles, and it's just going to be Mike White for Zach Wilson, and we're just going to have to get the fuck over it.
I know. Unless they're adding like that veteran who is for sure upgrade, but I don't know how likely it is.
Dave Smith says, so would you guys rather spend a lot of money on a Jimmy G car, or would you rather pay Mike White a year or two and trade for Minshew? Well, Minshew's a free agent. I think. Before I say that out loud, but I'm almost positive he is.
I'm 99% positive he is also.
Yeah, he is. He's So he's 26 right now. He'll be 27 next season. 6'2", 220 pounds. His statistics throughout his career are pretty impressive. You're talking like, what is it, like 6,000 yards or something crazy like that. So I think it was 6,000 yards and like 45 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. And he's got the mullet. He's got the stash. Like, how does that not scream like that's a man? That is a guy that is Barstool Sports as the embodiment of a quarterback for me.
He's a lot of fun. He is, and he's got the moxie to him. I think it would be one or the other. I don't think you're bringing in Mike White and then also going to pay Gardner Minshew. I agree. They're not going to cost you a ton, but I don't think you're signing both. I think it's one or the other.
Yeah, I think something would really have to go sideways for Minshew to actually be here. Like either White has some sort of astronomically terrible injury in these coming weeks, like a torn ACL where he's not going to be ready for the start of next season, or like someone throws the bag at him and we have to pivot a different direction, and then maybe you look that direction. But I have no idea where Joe Douglas goes with this, and I'm really glad I don't have to make this decision.
Same. We've been trying to talk ourselves into something for this past hour and haven't come up with a good idea yet.
Young Capo says, I'm looking at a post on Instagram right now. All these quarterbacks were in year 3 when they started playing good after getting a number 1 wide receiver. He's talking about Allen getting Diggs. He's talking about A.J. Brown for Hurts. He's talking about Hill with Tua. We need to replace Davis, which is weird because Corey Davis has been Zach Wilson's security blanket for his 2 years that he's been here. And I do think that Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson are both receivers that should have had impacts on Zach Wilson's potential already. Now, maybe you go out and you say, hey, we need to get a 6'5" speed demon, like just guy that can just be all over the field, and he's just got to be better than, Denzel Mims. And we'll move on from Corey Davis. Like, is there any player that might be coming up in free agency possibly? I haven't even remotely looked at wide receiver because of how kind of set we are at the position. I don't know. Any thoughts from you?
I don't think it'd be like a number 1 if that's where Young Capo's going. I think Garrett Wilson's probably going to put up 1,100 yards as a rookie this year with 3 different starting quarterbacks. That's your number 1. I think you need more complementary pieces. Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims, and Braxton Berrios, all those guys are going to be here. But if you could add one more pretty good receiver, either in the draft or free agency, then I think you could do that.
Yeah, I want like a jump ball guy. I want someone like a Plexco, like a 6'5", big-bodied type of receiver. Right now, the top receivers in terms of current average pay per year by over the cap: Nelson Aguilar, 30 years old; Marvin Jones, 33 years old. DJ Shark, 27 years old. Julio Jones, Byron Pringle, Alan Lazard, Jacoby Myers, Juju, AJ Green, Jarvis Landry, T.Y. Hilton, which I don't know if he signed just through the end of this year with Dallas or if he's actually signed beyond that. Yeah, there's not really a good crew of receivers hitting free agency at all. Now, this isn't in terms of like how they've ranked as far as like their actual play. It's just based on pay. So maybe I'm just missing someone on here. But yeah, I would say wide receiver is not a position to look at in free agency.
No, unless you want to take like a flyer on DJ Shark as like your wide receiver 3 or 4. He's big body, at least 6'4", 198. Obviously not the player that he was, in his second year in the league in 2019, but I think he can be, an okay depth guy.
Yeah, and this year he's got what? Is that right? 154 yards and 2 touchdowns? That's all you got from him?
That was last year.
Last year. Oh, I'm looking right here. 324 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, in 8 games.
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't. I mean, the size makes sense, right? Like that's kind of what I'm looking for. Unless you start using your tight ends. Like I don't feel like this was the first time I felt like we actually used Uzama in the passing game.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I like using Uzama more. Conklin's been really bothering me the last few weeks, but I don't know. What about Marvin Jones, another Jacksonville guy?
He's so old, 33.
He's a million years old. He's
like I like Corey. I don't know what's Corey Davis getting paid for next year. I think the savings we're going to need is probably more important than. I just don't want to like cut Corey Davis and then like pay someone about the same as Corey Davis. Like Corey Davis knows. So next year's cap hit is $11 million. I don't know. I mean, if you cut him, you save 10.5. So it's I think you're either drafting a receiver to be his replacement or you're hoping Mims steps into that role. And for me, Mims hasn't done enough to step into that role, but I also don't trust Corey Davis to stay healthy for a full 17-game schedule.
What about Alan Lazard?
That's an interesting one, right? Like, especially if the Jets were to try and like go after Rodgers, maybe there's a situation where you bring in a Lazard to have some type of familiarity with him. I don't know. I wish Rodgers' contract wasn't what it was because he's an interesting option. I don't particularly like him at this point in his career. I think he's a little bit more of an asshole than anything else, but it's interesting because Zach can learn behind him. He was his idol. Like, there's a lot of good things to like. Already knows the LaFleur offense. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Jordan Love? Like, what would happen if the Jets decided to make some type of move? Like, let's say Jordan Love, by all reports, it sounds like Jordan Love's going to request a trade if he's not named the starter for next year. I don't see a way they find a way to move Rodgers. Do you think that Love is worth it? It's almost the same situation as Sam Darnold, where he's going into his 4th year. They're going to have to decide on his 5th-year option this offseason. So that could either raise or hurt his trade value, depending on how you view it, because realistically, I don't think the Jets could make a move until after June 1st. But I'm just saying, like, if he were to force his way out and say, hey, I want to trade because I want to start, what are your thoughts on him?
I haven't seen enough from him to feel comfortable. That is a massive, massive gamble. Obviously, he looked good in the extended time that he got against the Eagles, but I mean, he still only threw 9 passes in that game. For his career, he's been in the league 3 years. He has 80 passing attempts. So I maybe there's something there, but I feel like that is a massive, massive gamble and pretty far down on the list. Like, I'd rather go with something a little more known in a Gardner Minshew before I would think about trading for Jordan Love.
Yeah, there's almost a part of me, and I don't know if it makes sense for the Packers to even consider doing this, because there's only really a 1-year difference between Love and Zach anyway, because Zach's going to have 3 years on his deal after this season, where Love could have as much as 2. Maybe there's a situation where, you trade you re-sign Mike White, he comes back, and then you say, oh, Zach's not going to be the guy. The relationship in the locker room so fractured. You flip him for Love. Now he's sitting behind his idol in Green Bay as opposed to sitting with us over here. I just don't know what Green Bay would want for Love or if it's even worth it for them because they've already had a quarterback sit and learn, and it worked out pretty well for him and Aaron Rodgers. Now, I don't expect Love to be that level of quarterback, but they've put a lot of time into him.
Yeah, they definitely have. I don't know if they'd be so quick, and not that it would be quick, but I think they want to keep him around. I don't see them moving on from him at this point.
Yeah. Chrono Kenny says, why are we not playing Ruckert at all? I feel like this kid would be a great receiver. I think it's just because we don't have to. This is the benefit of having players in positions that you feel comfortable starting because you don't want to have to play rookies. Like ideally, Max Mitchell wasn't going to get a ton of playing time this year because Fant and Becton we're gonna hold it down, and then you bring in Brown, and you don't want to force your young players to play. And I love how they're doing it with Jermaine Johnson. They're giving him drips and drabs, and he's learning more of the playbook, and they have his set packages that he's in there for. It seems like he's in there on early running downs. He showed in his ability to get a little bit of pressure as well, and I think he's going to fit nicely along with Huff when we eventually move on from Carl Lawson this offseason. So I like not playing Ruckert right now.
Yeah, they don't really have to. I think, potentially next year, like, would it shock you if they moved on from one of Tyler Conklin or CJ Uzomah and elevated Ruckert to play with, the other guy? I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I feel like I'd want to go into training camp and see a little bit out of Ruckert before making that move because while I've been disappointed in Conklin, I mean, he's been getting open and there's clearly skill there where Uzomah we've kind of focused more on his blocking ability, and the two tight ends have really had a lot of fun with one another. I don't particularly want to move on from either one, but it wouldn't shock me if we did make that decision by any means, especially because of the investment in Ruckert.
Right, and Conklin's kind of been a little disappointing. I had high hopes for him, and I think he started off pretty hot, but the last 2 weeks have been tough for him. A lot of drops, and can't really make
the Minnesota game for me soured me.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Sky C comes in, says, hey, Ryan and Matt, I feel we are pretty loaded at most positions. We'll be able to pull in a top shelf free agent plus Joe Douglas's draft savviness and our hurt players coming back. All should translate to playoffs. Only question is quarterback in 2023. It's certainly the most important question.
Yep.
That's definitely, touch the ball every play of the game.
Yeah, and this is something that you've said a lot, too, with free agency. I think it's going to be a lot of retaining the Jets' own guys than trying to go out and spend big money. Not that Douglas has ever really spent big money, but it's not like you're going to be looking through and seeing, like, all right, who are you going to pull? You need a big edge. You need another corner. You need this and that. I think it'll be depth pieces and, extending Quinnen Williams, I think, are going to be the biggest things this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're looking at like Mike White, you're looking at Huff, you're looking at Quinnen. I mean, Quinnen at the top of the list because, he's very much deserving of the extension. I think it's a lot of retaining our own. And then it's going to be a little bit of, getting all those players back from injury. Getting AVT and Breece Hall back is like getting 2 first-round picks back right off the bat. Like that's a shot in the arm in and of itself. As far as big-time free agents, the only one I'm looking at is Jack Conklin. I think the benefit and the interest was already there with Joe Douglas. Now, hopefully we have shown enough that he wants to, gamble on us being over here. I don't know if he wants to stay in Cleveland, try to rework his deal there, depending on how they finish out their season. It's going to be fascinating to see. But I would say I don't want to go after a top shelf free agent, but I am excited. And I do think the biggest question is quarterback in 2023, like Sky C says here. For sure. Let's see. How about them Jets says, can we trade Zach for Russell Wilson or get Lamar? I would be so upset with getting Russell Wilson. He is such a, oh my God, the quarterback contract is so terrible for him. And I kind of like sitting back and watching Denver just implode. Like, I don't even have any like ill will towards Denver, but like it just seems like it was such a bad trade. It was such a bad contract. Like, no, I want nothing to do with Russell Wilson. Lamar, is weird, right? Like that feels like the home run. Like if Joe Douglas wants to drop his nuts on the table and say, hey, we're going to go for it all. I don't care what it costs. We have the team. We're winning right now. Go out and get Lamar, pay him a massive contract. But that is absolutely terrifying for me because I'm looking at guys like Russell Wilson, guys like Deshaun Watson, guys who got traded for a ton of draft picks, got a ton of money in their new contracts, and have really severely underperformed. I don't know. I think if we do make a trade for Lamar, I feel a little bit of confidence knowing that Joe Douglas probably has some ears down there in terms of how Lamar is as a person and how he is in terms of his growth potential. I've seen how running quarterbacks, fare in terms of potential Super Bowl contention, and we haven't really seen it.
Yeah, and I don't think Baltimore is letting him go. I think at absolute worst, they are franchise tagging him, but I think they're way too smart of an organization to just let him get away. So I don't look at Lamar as a realistic option.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I think this feels very much like the Kirk Cousins situation, with the fear being Lamar's health long term and viability and the risk of a contract, where Kirk Cousins was more of a pride thing. Like, we put so much energy into Robert Griffin III that we don't want to admit being so totally wrong on Kirk Cousins and give him the deal that he has earned. Instead, we offer him like a sham contract that is essentially 2 franchise tags or whatever they offered him initially. I don't know. Quarterback's fascinating, and it's going to be the main topic of conversation. I'm probably going to do a bunch of mock off seasons based on different quarterbacks just to see what we could put together. Like, that's interesting for me. Like, okay, what could we do if we traded for Lamar? Like, let's say we have no first round picks and we have none of this. And like, what do you do?
That sounds a lot like February to me, right?
Right? Yeah, this is not December in the playoff hunt kind of talk.
No. But I mean, like, you're right. Like that, I feel like we're all going to be doing similar stuff like that, as we should around that time, because it's going to be fun.
RJ McPott says, y'all see Trent Brown like an Insta post on Jimmy G or Brady returning to New England. Also, did we coin a nickname for the Patriots' last play in Vegas? No, I haven't seen that. So RJ, if you guys know a good name for that horrible ending in Vegas for the Cheatriots, I would love to hear it. But as far as Trent Brown liking a post on Jimmy G or Brady returning to New England, it depends where that post is from, and really like how much they like Bailey Zappi, what they think of Mac Jones, because I'm not sure Jimmy G with the Patriots or Tom Brady with the Patriots at this point in time are necessarily that much better than either one of those guys. I think when you see a loaded roster, like, I don't look at the Patriots and see loaded roster. I see a good team, but I would see the Jets as a more likely landing spot for either one of those guys. Honestly, if they wanted to pull the trigger and just like hit the reset button in Oakland, I think both these guys could potentially land up, or not in Oakland, but in Vegas.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that. I don't think. Why would he go back to New England?
Brady, there's no way Brady is. I feel like there's a really good shot Brady wants to come to New York or San Francisco.
I think San Fran makes the most sense. That's the team that he grew up rooting for. I know New York, like, getting to play New England would be huge for him, but I don't know. San Francisco just seems to make too much sense.
Yeah, especially if they wind up losing Jimmy G anyway, and you got to try and figure out what you have in Lance. Like, the highest floor is probably Tom Brady, I would think, if you wanted to not risk too much. I don't know. Brian Bogan comes in, says, I don't want Lamar here with our field. That's a blown ACL with his play style. Man, that is horrible to think about. But yeah, I guess that is a concern, right? Like, if there's some sort of astronomically more injuries that happened in MetLife, which I don't know if that is so much the case. I think it's more so like the type of field across the NFL is causing more injuries than other spots. I don't know. You think they make a change on the field, like in general, with the NFLPA throwing a stink?
They supposedly are next year, right? Aren't they getting a different? I'm pretty sure MetLife is getting a different.
Oh, that's right. They're getting that new turf that doesn't like interlace. It doesn't have like it's like straight up and down, I think. It was like a more expensive turf, I think is what Green Bean was saying.
Yeah, Green Bean had like a full breakdown on one of his streams. I was very invested in the different types of turf.
That's why we miss Green Bean tonight. Green Bean, we hope you're doing
know.
well. If you guys didn't know, Green Bean's not feeling so hot right now. So make sure you hit that like button. For every like you give him, he gets butterflies in his stomach that makes him feel extra happy and excited for Santa to come. So make sure you hit that like button. That is the only way that we get to make Green Bean feel better. And to go along with that, for every 25 likes we do get, we're going to pick a t-shirt qualifier for the end of our stream, which is happening like right now. So I'm going to start ripping off some contest qualifiers in the chat. Matt, can you go to last week's Talkin' Jets panel?
Absolutely.
Time flies when we're having fun. I wasn't even paying attention.
I know. It's crazy. We're talking about the quarterback for next year, and you blink and it's 10 o'clock.
I feel like we're going to be doing a lot of that this offseason, which is really frustrating because I feel like when you spend the number 2 overall pick on a quarterback, you should avoid this conversation for at least a few years.
In a perfect world.
All right. We got Hawk, Hennessy, Heisman. You guys are both qualified. Whoop. I don't know if that actually worked out. I double tapped the old winner. Let's see what comes up. I'm picking 8 qualifiers here. Hennessy double qualified. Sorry, dude. Pulling it. Green Bean partied too hard for his birthday. Let's see what else we got. 1189 Paris. Jet Up Buttercup.
I like that.
Man, Hennessy Heisman's getting blasted. 3 different winners.
That's good.
Impressive. Dom C. See, you're more likely to get picked by Nightbot the more you comment in the chat overall throughout this entire thing. I think that's how it works. I think there's some kind of like algorithm.
There you go. So spam the comments next week, or not spam it, but actually put good, quality comments in there.
Quality comments, talking,
frequently. Yeah. Frequent good comments, not junk.
Love it. Chrono Kenny. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I need 2 more. Let's see what we got. See, I miss Green Bean. I'm not able to just not pay attention. I have to do this at the end now.
I know it's a tough job that he has. He really does a good job with it.
Rodrigo Costa says, "Damn, Ryan, your bot never chooses me." All right, Rodrigo Costa, you're going to get picked. See, there we go. Rodrigo Costa. And Kev Chata. All right, so I've got Hawk, Hennessy Heisman, 1189 Paris, Jet Up Buttercup, Dom C, Chrono Kenny, Rodrigo Costa, Kevin Chata. Give me 5 names from last week's video.
Okay. First one, we're going to do 𝐒𝐿𝐼NJ9.
Okay.
And he was mad that Nightbot missed him last week, so there we go.
I love it.
We'll go Big Hulk 6055.
Okay.
Chris Styles 7497.
7497.
Yep.
All right.
Just Another Channel 9250.
Like it. Okay.
And then we'll go Robert Sala 9402.
Robert Sala 9402. All right. So guys in the chat. Hawk, Hennessy Heisman, 1189 Paris, Jet Up Buttercup, Dom C, Chrono Kenny, Rodrigo Costa, Kev Chata, 𝐒𝐿𝐼NJ9, Big Hulk 6055, Chris Styles 7497, Just Another Channel, and Robert Sala 9402. All right. Odds or evens. 3, 2, 1. That's 5. We're going with the odds. Hawk, you're gone. Parrish, you're gone. Dom C, you're gone. Rodrigo Costa, gone. NJ9 gone. Chris Styles gone. Robert Sala 9402 gone. 3, 2, 1. It's a 10. We're going evens. Jet Up Buttercup gone. Kev Chatta gone. Just Another Channel gone. We are down to 3. We got Hennessy Heisman, Chrono Kenny, Big Hulk 6055. Chat, give us a number plus whatever we throw up here. 3, 2, 1. That's a 6. 6 plus a 7. That is an odd. So Hennessy Heisman, you are out. Big Hulk 60, you are out. Chrono Kenny, you are our winner. Bam. Where's my?
Let's
Come on,
go.
camera. Focus on it. Chrono Kenny, right up there. Bam. Thank you so much for playing. Reach out to me on social media so I can get your shipping information, get you a shirt, send it out to you ASAP. Probably won't get there in time for Christmas with it being all right down the road here. Matt, that takes us to the end of our show. Any last thoughts for our panel?
I missed Green Bean, but I had a blast hanging out with you, Ryan, and talking Jets. I hope that the next time we talk, the New York Jets still have a season. Jets getting the dub on Thursday. A new episode of Just Jets drops tomorrow. Let's go.
I love it. Green Bean, we're hoping you're feeling better. We wish all of you guys out there a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, all the holidays, all that good stuff. We're going to take the week off next week, Tuesday. So we're not going to have any show. We're going to take some time for the holidays with family visiting and whatnot. Plus, we have our game on Thursday. So we'll be talking, all of us, well before then. So you guys will hear from us for sure. But boys, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. This is Ryan signing off. JETS.